I spoke to Congressman Fossella on the phone because he was on the runway in Newark Airport. He was coming down to Washington, actually before we knew about the fire at the World Trade Center. And we just ran through the day, what was going to go on for the week. And then we heard the news about the fire. And nobody really knew at the time that a plane had hit. And there was some discussion of what was going on. There's some speculation it might have been a helicopter that had hit the building or a small plane. And there was a caller called into the news program who was in a car coming out of the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, which is not that far from the towers, and was just describing the fire and all. And he said he saw a large tire bouncing down the roadway. And it wasn't too long after that the second plane hit. And it was pretty apparent at that point that this was a terrorist attack. It was not an accident. And that this was a well-coordinated attack, something that we had not seen before. And from that point, I immediately went into our district office. Our district director was overseas on vacation, trying to get a sense of what was going on. I spoke to our Washington office because at that time we didn't have BlackBerries, so you either had email if you were at the computer at the office, or we were talking by phone. So I was talking to our office manager, trying to get a sense of what was going on down here, if they knew, if they were getting any news here in Washington about what was happening in New York. And things began to, obviously were developing awfully quickly. And we almost fell into this perverse cycle that it seemed that the Washington office tended to know more of what was going on in New York. Where I was sitting in my vantage point in New York, I sort of knew more of what was going on in Washington. And when I heard that there was an explosion at the Pentagon, and there was also a later erroneous report that there was an explosion at the State Department, I told our Washington staff to leave because we knew there was an attack in New York. It appeared then that there was also a coordinated attack in Washington. And if people were going after high-value targets, there's none better than the U.S. Capitol. So for their own safety, I told them to shut the office and to go home or to go to a place of safety. And at that point, I remember the first tower coming down. I remember the second tower coming down. I remember the time the second tower went down, I was just in shock because you knew there were thousands of people who died in that instant.